Hello, my name is Adrian Lynham and I'm the Health Promotion Manager in Community Healthcare West. And today I'm joined by Dr. Therese O'Reilly, who's the Unit GP Rep for Community Healthcare West and also a GP in practice with a real special interest in women's health. Therese, thanks very much for coming in to talk to us today. As you're probably well familiar from your surgery, the menopause is an area of huge interest to women and also oftentimes shrouded in a lot of mystique, and people are afraid to talk about it and stuff. So maybe we could explore a little bit more about it today, because it's one of the topics that our staff through staff health surveys have really told us they want a little bit more information on it. So I suppose to start off, really, if you could tell us a little bit of what the menopause is about and the sort of ages that you're likely to start having first symptoms or know you're heading into it.
Yeah, and I suppose it is a problem area for lots of people. And I suppose the ages that are there for normal menopause would be from 45 to 54. So that pretty much encompasses the age that the majority of women are going to go into menopause. Prior to that, under 45 would be early menopause, and early menopause describes the period from 40 years to 45 years. And less than 40, then it's called premature ovarian insufficiency, and so that's more problematic. So I suppose really from 40 onwards you can expect to have some symptoms. You may not be particularly in the menopause, but you can start having some menopausal symptoms.
Okay, and what sort of symptoms would they be, kind of, Therese?
Well, you can get symptoms even before you have any change, because I suppose traditionally we think of a change in your menstrual cycle. But you can actually start having changes even before the cycle changes at all. And that would be sort of hot flushes, maybe feeling a little irritable. That sort of thing mostly would be the initial, mainly that sort of.
And how kind of long, once somebody starts having the first symptoms till their final period stops, what kind of time span are we talking about?
Well, this now varies, and it's nearly like the length of a piece of string, almost. I mean, it's sort of 8 years is what's there. That's really the time from 45 years to 54 years, 8 years. But of course, it can be much shorter. Some people sail through, they never even know anything happened. They're out the other side with that. But for someone who, at the other end of the spectrum, you'll have someone who's having a lot of trouble with a lot of flushing and irritability and low mood and mood swings and tiredness and everything, difficulty coping pretty much.
Yeah, and you mentioned there earlier about the kind of like an early menopause. Does that affect, do we have any idea what proportion of women that affects? Because I know, personally speaking, as you say, when you start to get some symptoms and you're wondering, am I starting, amn't I starting?
Yeah, it's hard to put numbers on that.
Okay.
And that almost falls into, once you're over 40, into perimenopause.
Okay.
Now you can't really, blood tests are of little benefit unless that periods have stopped altogether. So if you are under 45 years of age and your period had stopped altogether or had become very erratic, then a blood test may be helpful just to sort of see, could this possibly be into menopause? But around the years of the menopause, 45 to 54, where periods are coming and going, checking the hormone, which is the FSH, is not of great benefit, because it can be low one day and high another day, and it really can steer you in the wrong direction, actually.
Yeah, I've had personal experience of that, where it goes up and down and you look like you're well on your way to coming out, and then suddenly, boom, your estrogen is up again.
And more importantly, you can actually get pregnant.
And fertility.
So that's the fertility, that sort of contraceptive
and we might
thing.
kind of cover that maybe as we go on in relation to it. So I suppose maybe if we look at symptoms, because that's what every woman is really, really interested in, what symptoms am I likely to have, and what can I do to try and alleviate some of those? Because like that with our staff, people are trying to stay at work. They're still looking after children. They could be carers at home. There's relationships. There's all that sort of stuff.
And I suppose around the time of menopause, in general, women have more responsibilities than they've had even before that. I mean, you have kids getting bigger, and in many cases maybe problems in that regard. You have work, coping with house bills, everything, and of course you're meant to be a superwoman, so there is no time for menopause to interfere with that. So the symptoms, I suppose, you divide them into sort of maybe physical and psychological sort of thing. So the physical ones, if you're having a lot of flushing and particularly night sweats, so that you're waking up several times a night, so you're getting poor sleep, so you're irritable the next day, and your energy is down. So it's sort of, and all of this is happening because your level of estrogen is dropping. And of course the fact that it's swinging up and down as well, you'll have good days and bad days. So overall it's a time of change. So I suppose what are you going to do about it? Well, I think you got to first of all come back to basics and trying to keep yourself as fit and healthy as possible. So the first thing I would say is, exercise. And you have to try and stay as fit as you can. Exercise is terribly important because it helps all aspects of the body, and from a cardiovascular point of view, very important. And as our cardiologists recommend, like the basic bare minimum is 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week at least of fairly physical exercise. And then you're back into your diet. And of course around this time calcium and vitamin D become really important to make sure we're by and large we're very deficient in vitamin D, and pretty much at this time everybody should be taking vitamin D. And ensuring that you've adequate calcium in your diet. Smoking, well, it's bad at any time, but I suppose at this time it's a big negative, and it doesn't help things. Alcohol again is another thing. And I suppose the figures we have, we have concerns about HRT and what it might do and all the rest of it, but smoking is a risk factor for breast cancer, as is being too heavy, and that's a body mass index greater than 35 increases risk considerably in that direction. So the other things there then that might, because I suppose not everybody is going to want to go on HRT. It's there, it's not for everybody. Not everybody is suitable to have it. So, other alternative things such as, CBT or mindfulness or these sort of things can be very useful at this time.
Okay.
And then of course that's before you can think about medication.
Yeah. And Therese, I suppose one of the things people often wonder as well is, they might have experienced of their mother going through the menopause and some of the symptoms that she had. Does that follow any kind of hereditary thing? Are we likely to have the same sort of menopause as our mum, or is it so individual for everybody?
No, it's not so much that you'll have the same symptoms, but if your mum had an early menopause, that it is likely that you will have an early menopause. Okay. So it certainly follows in that regard, but not necessarily the symptoms. Okay. Everybody, I think, depending on who they are and their stage in life and all the rest of it and how their life is going, symptoms will vary.
Okay. And I suppose another one of the symptoms that a lot of people talk about having is anxiety. Yeah. And I know it can be really challenging for people that normally this wouldn't affect at all, and suddenly they're into this cycle.
And that would absolutely be true. And I suppose it's almost a chicken and egg situation, because if your life is being disturbed with hot flushes in your sleep, and that's going to leave you tired and irritable, more anxious. But anxiety itself, with mood swings and a change in mood, can all be part of this whole time of menopause. And again, those things we talked about, exercise and those kind of things to keep yourself as fit and healthy as possible are really important. Traditionally the B vitamins, particularly vitamin B6 and oil of evening primrose, can help just around this time. They're good. There's not strong evidence there, but they can help. And of course, if the anxiety is interfering significantly, sometimes a low dose of an SSRI, which is one of the antidepressants, can help. Okay. Now they are also used for treating symptoms of menopause in people who absolutely can't take HRT and need something.
Okay. I suppose one of my personal favourites in the old menopause that really drives me round the twist is forgetfulness. Yeah. And I'd imagine that many of our staff at work probably could suffer from that, and it's so embarrassing when you're at meetings or you're talking to your manager. And I particularly have a real problem at the moment with remembering people's names. I know everything about them, where they are, but I cannot get the name out. And this kind of forgetfulness is very, very frustrating when you're
Yes.
maybe at a stage of your career where this doesn't show you up in a very good light.
So I suppose that's a combination of things, getting older and all of this menopausal sort of stuff that's going on. And again, managing your memory as well as best as you can is based on all those things we've talked about. Exercise and all those keeping healthy things do keep your brain, they keep the endorphins flowing and all the rest of it. And as well as writing things down and everything else. And so I suppose in this, at this point you're sort of depending a little bit on your great wealth of experience and everything to compensate for the slight memory thing, which can be a bit hazy.
Sure.
And but again, if it's a significant problem, if the person is not sleeping and if they are really at the end of the tether, they then may need to take some HRT, which can improve these things greatly. And work terribly well for some people. Some people don't need it, but and any of these things, can be trial and error.
Sure.
To see.
And Therese, these kind of symptoms, things like forgetfulness, the insomnia, does that right itself when we actually get through menopause? Do we start to come back? Just on anecdotal evidence of your kind of patients?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
You come through the turmoil, and the 8 years is there, and then most people have come out the other side. Now that's not to say that you can still have hot flushes and things, because you can still have fluctuations of sort of bits of hormones in your body. So but you're into a different phase of your life, and you've got used to coping with it, and you've come out the other side and you've survived. So I suppose it's even more important then, because different things start happening. You've come through, your estrogen levels have dropped. Whether you're on HRT or not, you're not going to continue on that long term. But now you've got to really focus on being healthy and staying healthy, because without estrogen, your body is now acting more like a man's body. So your risks of cardiovascular disease starts to mount up, atherosclerosis, because your blood vessels are no longer protected now by estrogen, where prior to the menopause, weight tended to go on hips and thighs. Now it's going to go on the belly. And of course, that's with more male type of obesity, and of course there's a direct correlation between abdominal obesity and cardiovascular disease. So that's just another thing to be mindful of, as any of us would be, male or female.
So I shouldn't kind of protect myself with the idea that the estrogen is stored in my belly fat and will help me to slowly come down on the estrogen.
No, that would be that wouldn't not be good. True.
Yeah. No, you've taken that crutch from me now, Therese. Thanks very much.